So I was born in East London and I trained there at the University of Manchester as a medical doctor. So I graduated medical school in 2012 and I was based in the UK for 10 years, working as a doctor after a sequence of life events that actually took me down into a dark space. I discovered meditation. I was able to feel energy in my body, to feel somebody else's emotion in my body. And in that moment, something inside of my brain, it was like this cognitive dissonance fracture that happened where I was able to awaken to the possibilities of life that were outside of the confines of what I'd been educated. I discovered that healing happens on many different layers and levels, but fundamentally at the core of it, it's about connection to self. That when we
In the coming episode, I speak with Manish Blaha. Manish is a practicing medical doctor with a passion for holistic well-being, specializes in embodiment through meditation to harmonize the human energy field for optimal mental, physical, and emotional health. His innovative wellness approach, Inner Alchemy, combines breathwork, intuitive movement, and energetic meditation to unlock inner wisdom, enhance potential, and foster inner peace. Having traveled to spiritual sites worldwide, Manish now resides in Bali, where he recently built a home and got married. His mission is grounded in the belief that true healing comes from balancing and aligning the mind, the body, and the spirit. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome in the Awake Insights, Manish.
Thank you for having me, Henk. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, man, it's been a while that we have seen each other. I remember that we met in Tulum. How many years is that? Like 5 years ago, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, 4
and then we
years.
saw each other back. 4 years, 5 years. It was during the lockdown, I think, the second lockdown in the pandemic. Yeah. And then we saw each other back in Bali, and that's actually where you still are at the moment. Seems like you have found your place there. So tell me a little bit. So, your background is super interesting. So originally, I think you lived in London, born in London. I'm not sure about that. You were a medical doctor, and then you transitioned your life completely, starting discovering the holistic world and all of that. So maybe it's good to start explaining or sharing that with the audience a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah, thank you. So I was born in East London and I trained there at the University of Manchester as a medical doctor. So I graduated medical school in 2012 and I was based in the UK for 10 years, working as a doctor through different specialities, but ultimately I trained as a general practitioner. And I preferred that the most because it gave me the breadth of being able to support anyone in society with what it was that they needed support with. I didn't feel so attracted to being very focused and specialized. And it makes more sense now that having this holistic approach is looking at the human as a whole and not focusing on one different element, but seeing how it all interacts. And that's what excites me the most.
Yeah, I can imagine. So why did you actually become a doctor? Is it something that you really wanted to do yourself? Or is it something maybe from your parents, like it's good to become a doctor or your lawyer or whatever?
So this is the thing. Like I always felt like it came from within me. It was my intrinsic desire to support people and to be of service. And also based on my conditioning, it was like the highest achievement I could accomplish. So I've now started to understand a lot about subconscious mind and how programming occurs when you're a child. And I specifically remember being a kid and my family saying, what do you want to be when you go older? Do you want to be a doctor? So it would be a leading question, which in some ways would create programming if you have a desire to please and to receive positive feedback. So I think a bit of both, but it definitely is a passion of mine.
Amazing. Yeah. So in practical, so you worked in a hospital, or had you had your own practice and received patients, or how was that exactly?
Yeah, so as a part of the training for a general practitioner, you have to work in hospital for a certain number of years. And I also was working in surgery for 2 years to explore whether that would be something that I would like to go into. And after exploring that, I didn't find it was really providing me the fulfillment that I was seeking. So I ended up training as a general practitioner and having a practice that I was working at and seeing my own group of patients.
Okay. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you started to realize that that's not enough, then something is missing. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I found that actually from the years of heavy education and focus and not necessarily learning about how I could navigate a balanced nervous system and not really knowing how to rest and being very focused on driving and creating and constantly wanting to accelerate and progress, I at some point found myself on the verge of burnout. I was at the time working in the emergency department as part of my training as a general practitioner. And I remember at the time I was driving 100 miles an hour on the motorway to get to work, even
Yeah.
when I wasn't in a rush.
Mm-hmm.
It was just this intrinsic desire and addiction to adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
And so after a sequence of life events that actually took me down into a dark space, I discovered meditation. And what I found was connecting to the present moment through meditation was really supporting me to be able to expand my awareness to the alternatives that mainstream allopathic medicine teaches you is not possible. You kind of have this very strong ego when you are spending many years dedicated to learn something at a high level. And
Yeah.
I remember the first moment when I experienced something that medicine would not be able to prove. I was able to
Yeah.
feel energy in my body, to feel somebody else's emotion in my body. And in that moment, something inside of my brain, it was like this cognitive dissonance fracture that happened where I was able to awaken to the possibilities of life that were outside of the confines of what I'd been educated.
Yeah. So meditation was actually your first discovery, your first tool actually that you used to take a more distance from your life and to see what's really going on, what's really happening. And that's actually where your journey started to started, I would say, to your awakening journey is how they sometimes call it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It was awakening to being more than a mind and body complex and integrating spirituality and the awareness of my spiritual nature into that construct of ego and body and memory.
Yeah, yeah. Now the fact that you had so many that you were always chasing life and stressed, and you felt that this adrenaline that you needed, that you mentioned, is that a typical thing for in the medical industry that doctors have, or was it something inside of you that was not right, that you said, I need to do something else, or I have to dive deeper into myself to find some answers? Can you share a little bit about that? Yeah, I'm asking the question because if you still look at mainstream people, and healthcare is super necessary. There are a lot of hospitals, there are a lot of doctors, they all do their work with a lot of passion and commitment. So there must be a message for those people as well, to and a solution for them to find balance in what they do in their life. That could, and maybe your advice and your experience can support these kind of people.
It's a big desire of mine to do so. And in relation to your question, I feel like I have to take my own personal responsibility for the situation I was experiencing, while at the same time understanding that my environment was also having a major impact on how I was feeling. Like in health in general, in healthcare, especially in the emergency department that I'm working in, it's a life or death situation people are coming in with. And
Yeah.
so I found that you're incentivized to be working in high pressure environments, and adrenaline is something, and stress is something that is going throughout the entire medical industry. If you think about it, it's when someone comes to the doctor, they're going through something, some challenge, and my understanding also is that every health problem has a psychological aspect and emotional aspect to it also. So when you're interfacing with people one after another, sometimes your appointments are 10 to 15 minutes long and you're seeing people at that frequency. You're interacting with many different people who are going through their own challenges. And if you have not developed the ability to hold space for someone, which is to be in your own energy field, in your own body, while interfacing with them, coming from a space of compassion and care, it's going to impact you gradually. And that's what I perceive in my colleagues, is that a lot of them are really struggling because they're not learning emotional and energetic hygiene, and they're not taking care of their own needs. And then they're having many people whose needs they need to also take care of.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Are you really in touch with those people that you used to work with, or are you working in the medical industry in some kind of form? I mean, like the medical industry that you used to work in, or is it totally something else that you do right now? Hey there. Are you looking to reach a bigger audience? Maybe you have a powerful message to share, and you also want to go on podcasts like these, or even bigger podcasts and stages, or becoming a recognized authority within your industry. Building your personal brand and establishing yourself as an influencer doesn't happen overnight. But here's the good news. There are clear steps that you can take to increase your chances and create more opportunities. To help you get started, I've created a quick quiz. It are just 12 simple questions that take less than 2 minutes to complete. The quiz will show you exactly where you stand right now and what you can do to take the next step. And the best part, once you've completed the quiz, I'll send you a free guide packed with actionable strategies to help you prepare for those stages, podcasts, and other platforms where your voice needs to be heard. So don't wait, check it out. You can find the link in the show notes to take the quiz today, because your audience is waiting for you. And let's go back to the episode.
I'm working 8 hours a week as a general practitioner. I let go of that some years ago. When we were in Tulum, I wasn't working as a doctor. And I found after about a year, I felt there was an element that was missing from my life. And it was this ability to be able to meet people from all different walks of life and to be able to generate compassion to them, to be able to feel this unity between people and to be able to serve and support them in a way that's also alternative to what 99% of medical doctors are going to be able to provide them. So it's more of an option that comes in with the healthcare of the westernized medicine that can give them a solution that gets to the root cause. And that's what really provides a lot of drive and passion for me to continue to do this work.
Yeah, exactly. But now you live in Bali, so you're not spending the time in the hospitals anymore, not at least here in Europe. So can you a little bit explain, like, what is it exactly that you do? How do you support this kind of people? And also, how does your life look like in Bali right now? Because you're involved in like a lot of other projects and events that you're doing around well-being. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I work for a private healthcare company and all of my clients are in the UK. So in the hours that I work, it's 4 hours twice a week, they'll populate a patient list for me. And then so I'll be doing all the regular things that I normally will be doing without physical examination. So it's really helped me to fine tune my communication skills, because it's entirely necessary for me to be able to make a decision entirely based on what questions I'm asking and what information I'm receiving back from the person. And so I've been doing that for a couple of years now. And I find that I'm still able to do a good job at providing this level of care. There's obviously some things that are out of my limitations because of the physical proximity. But I still I find myself very motivated for it. And I've, in this process of discovering my passion and my purpose, I've discovered that healing happens on many different layers and levels. But fundamentally, at the core of it, it's about connection to self. That when we can connect with our inner world to come into acceptance and openness for our present moment experience, we're able to shift in some way. And so I found many different modalities to be able to get people into the internal world. And then during that process, I'm guiding them into this state of openness and acceptance, to allow energy to flow. So one of those ways is breath work. So I've curated a breathwork method that enables people to move energy through the body. And then the journey that I take them on is one of breathwork, dance, and meditation, because the breathwork is cultivating all this energy in the system. And when we can be present with the body, with that energy inside of the body, and move our body intuitively, we can help to move energy through the channels that are connected to the central channel of energy, which is what I'm guiding people to breathe through, from the base of the spine to the top of the head. And so we then, after that process, go into a meditation, and I'm guiding people into their internal world to feel their emotions, to accept whatever's arising for them in the present moment, to connect and release energy and receive energy into the 7 energy centers. And I'm also doing this in other events that I'm doing where music and dance are also part of that. I find it's a really powerful vehicle.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, for sure. We share a passion there, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. For me, it's just it's still something I need to explore more, and I feel that it will be like a kind of a experiment that I'm going to do in the coming time to see what I can do with music, because when I play music for bigger crowds, that energy and that feeling that goes through my body, that's undescribable. There's nothing else that can replicate that in a kind of way, and I want that people that are on the dance floor feel the same. So that's going to be the experiment to see how I can do that in a certain kind of way. So yeah, it would be along the way when I'm on that journey. It would be nice to reflect a little bit on that with you in later stage as well, to see how you have experienced that in your journey. But yeah, it's super interesting, and it all has to do with that. And you mentioned that also in your work, the mind-body connection. So a mind-body-heart connection is maybe better way to say that. So can you explain me a little bit how that works? Because we in the West here we learn to do everything out of the mind, and the body. We don't know so much about that actually. Although over time we learn that a lot of emotions getting stored in the body, and there are a lot of techniques to release all these emotions and all these kind of things. So, can you explain a little bit how you have discovered that, and how does exactly work?
For me, the most powerful anchor into the present moment are the sensations within the body, because the sensations are changing from moment to moment. And so by being anchored in that awareness, not only can we be anchored in the present moment, but we also receive an extra field of information. So that field of information is either our emotions and how our emotions are responding to our environment. But what we also have been able to discover through research that's been done by the HeartMath Institute is how the heart is connected to non-local intuition. So there were studies that were done where they were observing the rhythm of the heart and how the rhythm of the heart was responding to stimulus on a screen. So they would randomly show scary images on a screen, and they would measure the brain waves and they would measure the heart rhythm. And they found that the heart rhythm was responding to these scary images before they were shown on the screen and before the brain. So by maintaining a connection to the sensations in the body and having an unconscious layer of my awareness also feeling my heart, I'm able to perceive information that's happening out of time. And so that's my perception of intuition. So then I can live a life that is more connected to flow and is more connected to, I would say, to a higher power, because I'm being guided out of my mind, and my mind is a subject of my experiences and my conditioning, whereas my heart is connected to the present moment, which is a gateway to the divine.
Yeah, yeah. And only that you can discover if you give it space, right? And I think that's the biggest problem in our society, that we don't allow ourselves to give space for these experiences, because everything has to go so fast, and we have certain things that we want to achieve in our life, and that's the only thing we're thinking about. So I believe, from my experience, and you will probably confirm that as well, like, to get into those spaces, you need to find calmness and relaxation within yourself, and a lot of people never experience that. And I think that's actually the trajectory you have to go through in in all the spiritual work, or all the developments and healing work that we are doing, and that can take a lot of time, right?
Absolutely. When you're first starting off on this journey of connection with the self, we have to break away so much conditioning, and a large amount of that conditioning that we're receiving from society is about the need to do. And so we're connecting to a state of being, and that state of being is very often requiring stillness in the first stages. But the beautiful thing is that once we have really anchored in a sense of awareness through those spaces of stillness, we're more able to connect to that state of being while we're in action. And I find that that's the sweet spot, when we're able to be in the world while also being connected to our hearts, while also being connected to the state of awareness in the body. I find there's a lot of power that can come with that. And that also propels our external desires for progression further, so that we can also be in the world as well in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think, as you explained, meditation for you was like the first thing that you discovered as a tool to come in that relaxation state. By the way, for me, it was exactly the same thing. I
Yeah.
discovered meditation in my early 20s. And that was mind blowing for me, like my life, and my how I saw my own myself in my life changes so dramatically. That was insane. But yeah, I learned now, so many years later, that it's not only that. It's there are so many other things uh, that you can try, and that are really beneficial to go in that journey of giving yourself that space of relaxation, allowing the sensations in your body to be there, go through certain pains that come up, and yeah, that's it's very impactful. But I'm wondering, just for people that don't have so much experience with that, can you explain a little bit about what they can expect in terms of, okay, how much time do I need to invest in these kind of modalities and practices? When do I see the first benefits of it? And is it something that I have to do for the rest of my life, or can I just focus on that for like 5 years, and then I can just start going back to my previous life, which is not realistic, but some people might think like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that the most important thing that when you start meditating is that we're not seeking to generate suffering.
Are you looking to expand your network with other well-being entrepreneurs? Or you want to gain valuable insights into industry trends, business strategies, or sales and marketing? Or maybe you're looking for potential collaborations to grow together with like-minded entrepreneurs. If so, the True Impact Club might be perfect for you. It's a community where we meet bi-weekly to share our stories and journeys. Are you interested in joining? Just visit trueimpactclub.com to find all resources you need to become a member of the community. Thank you, and let's continue the conversation.
So someone sitting down for 30 seconds to a minute in silence could create a lot of turmoil in their mind and in their emotions. So for these people, I would say, even if you're doing 30 seconds of silence, watching your breath, that's an achievement. And that we're not trying to create tension within the mind. So some people that I have supported have had diagnosis of ADD, and they find it very difficult to sit for periods of time. So for these people, I recommend starting slow and gradually building up. And what can be really, really helpful is to exercise first, so we get out a lot of that restless energy so that we actually want to be still, and also to cultivate a practice of breath work where we are using breathing exercises to get into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest and heal nervous system. We can balance that nervous system versus the alternative, which is the fight or flight or freeze. With people that
Yeah.
are feeling anxiety, they're on the other side. So it's really vital to have this gradual benefit. If you do not have a challenge with sitting still for prolonged periods of time, I would say 15 to 20 minutes is a really good sweet spot at the beginning.
Mhm.
And then as you find you're getting increasingly comfortable with that, increasing by 5 minutes each time would also be really helpful as you progress. Now, in relation to your question about is this something that I need to do for the rest of my life, when I started meditating, I didn't want to stop because of what I received from it. To connect to that space of stillness and silence within, I found very desirable. I'd still feel like if you meditated for 5 years or 1 year, you're going to experience benefits because of the transformation that happens in a relationship with your mind that will take you through the rest of your life.
Mhm.
And I would expect people to start seeing benefits within the first 2 months. That's what studies for people with treatment resistant depression and
Mhm.
practicing mindfulness were able to notice that there was a discernible benefit that they would experience with a daily practice that lasted for that period of time.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. So meditation is a good way to start. It's a pretty easy tool to start using if you explain it like that. There are also different apps available that you can use that can guide you for a certain amount of days just to get into it as well. But why is meditation not something that classical doctors or all other kind of practitioners in the medical field just recommend everyone to do, or is that already the case?
We're starting to see an increase in the availability of literature that's supporting the benefit of meditation for a whole host of conditions. And so previously, there was not so much availability of that because pharmaceutical companies are the primary funders of these research studies. And obviously, there's no marketing benefit, profit in that for them, so they wouldn't fund
Hmm.
it. But
Yeah.
we're seeing independent institutions funding research on the benefits of meditation. And because there's now a wealth of research to support that, doctors feel confident to be able to provide that to their patients as an option, even if they've not taken and embodied that experience for themselves. So I was
Yeah.
sharing that with people because I was a fanatic. I was so positively influenced by it in myself. I was going out of my own way to find research so that I could provide an indication to my patients that there is evidence here to show that this is beneficial. Because the most common limiting belief that I see is people saying that they don't have enough time.
Yeah.
And so when you can prove to someone that there's an evidence base that they're going to receive benefit from it, then that balance towards, okay, I'm going to invest my time in this, it's more easeful for that person to move towards.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Is meditation the same as mindfulness, or do you see some kind of difference there?
Mindfulness is a great way to start. I find mindfulness is fantastic to transform the relationship that you have with your mind. And so many people live in a state where they're constantly associated with the thought content that they're receiving from the mind as themselves. And when that happens, it's incredibly draining because every thought process that happens, and I see the mind like a radio station that's constantly flitting from one bit of content to another bit of content. It, if that's controlling your nervous system, you're going to constantly be jumping around, and that's not a very energy efficient state to be in. So
Yeah.
mindfulness is fantastic for being able to create that space between this voice that you hear inside your head and who you are as the being that's able to observe that and be able to take that as a witness. I would perceive meditation itself is this state of being connected to that beingness that you have inside of you. And so when we're able to anchor into that state of beingness, we are able to, I feel we're able to regulate our nervous system in a whole different way. And we're able to generate a host of benefits that happen in our neurochemicals and energetically as well.
Yeah. I have this impression that mindfulness is more widely accepted as a term than meditation. Do you have an idea why that is? Is it easier to practice to do, or how is it different from like in terms of technique? How is it different from meditation?
Mindfulness is quite helpful for people that are experiencing anxiety and mental health disorders. It's really useful because a lot of the issues that are coming on there are triggered by the relationship with the mind. So,
Yeah.
by generating focus that mindfulness can do in the brain, and being able to discern between the distance between the thought and the thinker and the thought content, people can see considerable benefits in their mental health. So,
Hmm.
there's therefore quite a lot of research that's going towards that.
Yeah.
Meditation starts to have some spiritual connotations,
Yeah.
and at least it can have. So therefore, there's not a huge amount of medical interest in there, because we start to
Mm.
get into this gray area where people don't necessarily want to go into if they're atheist or not seeking spiritual development.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I compared a lot meditation with, yeah, if you look in other religions, like prayers, it's a kind of a prayer, basically, right? And if you then
Yeah.
see in other religions how much time and space that they give to these moments, and we actually don't, or I never did, or my surrounding never did, yeah, it's interesting to observe that. You see this like even in airports, you have spaces where you can pray. In certain companies, you have spaces also for prayer, but maybe also for meditation. So yeah, it's certainly interesting how that process goes quite slowly, because it's something that, yeah, I already know about for the last 10 years, basically. Well, meditation I discovered a long time, long before that, but yeah, just that it's more adopted, or it gets slowly adopted in our society, but really slowly.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's having an increase now. Companies like Google, these like tech companies, they have a strong focus on mental well-being, and they are integrating this into their communities at work. So I definitely see an increase in the awareness of the people that I'm supporting, either as a medical doctor or in my private practice. And so that's positive for me to be able to observe.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's quite well known that in the times that we are living in today, there is a lot of mental health issues, and there's more talked about in media, online. We in a lot of cases we call it like a kind of a crisis. So, how do you see what happens today? How do you observe what is happening today, and how do you see the future of that? In the coming time, based with all the knowledge and tools that we already know, but not everybody knows.
I definitely have a positive outlook. I find that society is moving in two directions. One in which people are becoming more disconnected from themselves, where they are completely absorbed in the content of the mind, and they are living from dopamine and adrenaline. And the things in society that are driving that are our modern lifestyle with technology. It's creating easeful access to be disconnected from the present moment by living in a subtle alternative reality.
Mm.
And I can see that increasing over time as we get more into VR and AR and AI, Neuralink and these technologies that are going to support people creating entirely different realities that are only engaged the mind, and that will support people to be further and further disconnected from the physical body and the sensations that are going on inside of them, more separated from human connection through intimacy and creating more isolation. And I see an alternative timeline that will simultaneously be existing where we are developing more connection with spirit, more connection with the heart, more vulnerable communication and connection and living in community, connecting to the earth, being connected to the cycles and the rhythms of nature. And what I have experienced from my own journey is that when I became really disconnected and I was going through a crisis in some way, I decided to seek a solution outside of myself. And this field of intelligence that we live in is able to respond and provide solutions. And then you have people like ourselves that are choosing to stand up in the world and to share our journeys and to really dedicate our lives to being able to support and provide value to other people as to how they can live lives in a different way that is connected more to their own essence. And so I feel like there will be, as people become more disconnected, more desire for people to make a difference and a change. And so also this alternative reality that is connected to community and to prosperity and generosity and all these qualities that we know of the heart, I can see that also becoming quite attractive. And becoming also a point of attraction for people to become more connected with themselves.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Like once you're on that ride, actually, and you discover all these benefits and how these changes that are happening in your life, inside first inside of you and in your body, and then in your life, then there's no way back, and you don't want anything else and anything more than that, and you want to continue on that path. The biggest step for most people is to get on there. Actually, is to take that step and step out of that comfort zone in a way which is not comfortable, but they numb themselves and they find ways actually to cope with the life that they are in. So yeah, also for me, actually, that's kind of my mission, and I'm always focused on that, is to what you say, you have these two directions, and that's what you see in the future, the most isolated people, and maybe in some way you can also say that the other group is also kind of isolated because they are living in their own world and with their own beliefs, but could also be in a kind of a bubble. So it's like two worlds that kind of live next to each other. And for me, I want to bring them together, and I always want to find ways and strategies, whatever we can do with media that we have right now, with technology that we have right now, to bring those worlds together. How do you do that today in your life and the work that you do, and how would you also further in your mission contribute to that?
I think social media is a fantastic tool that we can utilize, and I don't see it being positive or negative. It's really about how we choose to use it and how we choose to consume it. And so through that, but also reconnecting with mainstream society. I live in Bali. It's one of these societies that we're referring to, where freedom and personal expression and this feeling of being connected to spirituality is part of not only the community that I live in, but also the local Balinese. And there is a beautiful community that lives here. But then I also feel it's important to go to the UK and host retreats and trainings and transformational experiences, to travel around the world, and to change people's lives through creating experiences using and utilizing the energy that we've cultivated in places in the world where the energy is very high. So Tulum is one of them, Ibiza is one of them, Bali is one of them. In these places, magic is able to happen quite easily. It's quite tangible. But I feel like when you spend a long time in these areas, you're able to then take that energy and provide that to other people.
Yeah. Totally. So is your life divided in those different parts? That you say, I spent some time in Bali, a few months there, and then I go to London in your case, or to other places in the world, to the West. Uh, Do you have a certain structure there, or is it just based on what comes up, what's available, what projects or what demand there is? Yeah,
Yeah, I'm working on invitation. I went to the UK last a year and a half ago, but since then I was traveling to Hong Kong for work. This summer I got married, so my whole family came here to Bali. So I've just finished building a house here. So there's been a lot of my energy and my attention and my focus has been here. Also building events and building my in-person offerings here. But I
yeah,
definitely see that things will evolve with travel and with more offerings internationally.
yeah, yeah. Can you tell me a little bit? Because how long are you in Bali right now? Like a few
I've,
years?
I've been here for 4 years now,
4 years, yeah.
3.5, 4 years.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, of course, we had a pandemic which changes many things. But can you maybe explain a little bit how you feel that Bali has changed in terms of a provider of conscious work? And do you see that there's more demand for healing in general? Let's say that or healing tourism that comes to Bali, how has that evolved over time?
Yeah. So Bali's always been a hotspot for healing tourism, specifically because of the field that the Balinese have created here. They live their lives in a lot of gratitude and reverence. And that in itself just creates a very harmonious environment. What I've perceived in the time that I've been here is since the Russia and Ukraine war, there have been a lot of people from both of these countries coming to Bali. And
Yeah.
obviously, having that situation happen in your country is something that can be traumatic. And so I think there's been a significantly elevated influence of people seeking support from these nations. And in regards to the rest of the world, I feel in general tourism here is increasing, and
Yeah.
a significant portion of that is conscious tourism.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned the influx of Russians and Ukrainians. Do you feel they are involved in this conscious movement in Bali, or is it more are they more separated and trying to create their own bubbles there?
I think just like in every society, you have your distribution of people that have different focuses and different intentions. But what I perceive about people that come from Russia um, and Ukraine is that their ancestry and their culture is spiritual in nature. It is very
Mm.
connected to. I would compare it to like to paganism based on my impressions from the people that I've met and friendships that I have. With that is just generally connected to society. So the power of the earth and the power of the cycles and how to utilize the energy of nature to be able to increase the productivity in our lives and prosperity.
Is that from experience that you have friends from there and you work with them as well, or how do you know that?
It's just by meeting people through the events that I'm creating and being able to to experience people having a depth of the journeys that they're able to access, and also just through being able to meet people and commune on a heart level. You know, when you
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you meet someone who's centered in their heart, you meet not based on mind. You're meeting on a deeper place, and so I
Mm.
do meet many people that are from these countries that are anchored in that awareness.
That's amazing, actually. Yeah, I didn't expect that because my experience is mostly from people coming from there. Because yeah, we have them coming everywhere in Western Europe, right? It's more that they try to create their own bubbles actually, and living their own communities in a certain kind of way. But it's really yeah nice to see from what you shared actually that they also are curious and mingle with other communities and are open for this kind of work. It's really nice. Yeah.
It's a huge passion of mine. I this year have created 4 one-day music festivals, and the name of those festivals have been called Pangea, and Pangea is the name of the Earth when it was one continent. And so a big passion of mine is getting all of the different communities that are present here and creating a sense of unity. And so I'll do that by inviting different artists that are from different communities that have different subsets of communities that are connected to them, and bringing in local Balinese priests and really creating this field where everyone can intermingle and to connect and generate a heart-centered space for them to feel unified in that way.
I
And
love
they've been really
that.
profound. Yeah, they've been really profound. The energy's been really beautiful, and the attendance is consistently increasing.
That's really great, actually. I really love that. Because yeah, it's true, artists have a certain kind of influence in society, right? So, and if you look then in different communities, they look up at their artists from their countries. So if you can bring the artists together and you bring the influencers together, and you bring the communities together, it's really beautiful, actually. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's that brings us to that part of leadership, because that's for me like, yeah, an act of leadership. So I'm a little bit curious, what is for you leadership, and how do you, aside from what you just shared, actually, how are you practicing that in the work that you do?
My desire is to maintain a harmonious energy field with everybody that's within my community. So everyone that I have to interact with, and when I'm organizing festivals, there are many different people that I have to have interpersonal relationships with. And so it's possible that in that process of collaboration, that there can be some kind of disagreement. There can be something that you can feel between you when some miscommunication happens. And for me, being responsible for leadership involves ensuring that those areas of dissonance are never ignored,
Hmm.
so that vulnerability and open communication and trust and harmonization is always available.
Hmm.
You can't guarantee that it's available both sides, but I hold myself to always be open to provide that, and that's my core tenet for that. And maintaining integrity and fairness is another really important part of that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
being here for 3 years and holding those ideals while also seeking and desiring to be present with everybody that I'm communicating with or connecting with, even if it's just for a short period of time, I find that's also important.
yeah.
To give someone your full attention and be fully present with them when they are having something that they would like to share with you, or when you have some kind of communication to happen. I find that that also really helps.
Yeah, it's again giving space, right? You have to give things, you have to give someone space.
Yeah.
You have to give yourself space, you have to give
Yeah.
someone else's space, and then yeah, the authenticity comes comes out, and then yeah, we can have real conversations about what's really going on and going towards solutions and everything. But I can imagine that, yeah, that also bring certain kind of challenges based on what kind of people you have in front of you, what are the intentions of different people.
Well, the interesting thing is that this kind of connects me back to the question that we were, or discussion we were having at the beginning about how we can create these moments for introspection while we're doing. And what I find is that when I'm having these moments of connection, when I'm like organizing a festival and there's like 400, 500 people there, and I've got many different things going on, when I'm having that moment of being fully present with that person, and I'm being connected to that sense of beingness, which creates the magic in the connection and the communication, I am able to come back into my center.
Yeah,
And so it's like, yeah, there may be challenging dynamics that arise in these moments, but if we come from that place of non-judgment, of heart-centered leadership, of presence and acceptance of the present moment, we don't deplete ourselves, and we
yeah.
can generate harmony in the connection in that moment.
Yeah, yeah. That shows me, and I can recognize that. Yeah, that's a good positive outcome of doing many years of work around that, giving yourself the space and takes a step back from certain situations and things, learn to communicate better in a certain kind of way. So I think this is an example of an outcome of that, and that takes, for me, it took a lot of years actually to really experience this. And sometimes it's there, and sometimes it's not there, and it's like it's sometimes very chaotic.
Absolutely, for sure. I find it's more chaotic when I'm overwhelmed or when I'm really fatigued. And so
Yes.
then the ideology is creating balance in life between
Hmm.
external and internal rest and doing. And I, yeah, I just find it's just really key to ensure that we create these environments for connection between people. And the most important thing that I'm teaching, and I agree with you, it took me years also to feel like I was really embodied in that aspect. But I am teaching people to integrate these things into their lives immediately,
Yeah.
because that's also a skill. So we can sit on our meditation cushion for 15 minutes and then carry on exactly as we did before and have this very slow integration of what we're learning in our practice in the outer reality. Or from day one, we can have that intention and that awareness and take that forward. And that's why I feel so passionate, because I have, they're not mistakes, but I have done things in my practice that have maybe not been the most direct path to experiencing more ease and more harmony in my relationships and my outer environment. And so that's why I feel motivated to be a teacher in this way,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
to support people to make more easeful accelerations towards the lives and the realities that they choose to embody.
Mm. Yeah. Do you believe, because we can now say, okay, if you want to start this journey, start by meditating 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. That can be great, and people can see the benefits of that. Like in 2 months, maybe that's enough for them to continue, maybe not. Do you believe that it would be more beneficial to be guided by someone that has already been there, that is more steps ahead? Or do you believe that, yeah, someone just needs to be curious, be open, and just explore their own path, their own ways? Maybe it depends on the person, I don't know, but is there a certain kind of advice that you can give to people that are listening?
I agree. It depends on the person and the way that they are able to receive information. Like I'm like an explorer. So as soon as I discovered this, I just felt this huge thirst and hunger to be able to discover all the different elements of exploring all the different dynamics and dimensions that we're discussing. I feel like the most easeful way is to be able to be supported by someone who has already had certain experiences that you're seeking to embody. So if you feel the resonance with someone's path and journey, and you feel like there's something that you can emulate from their own experiences, I definitely think it saves time. And it just depends on each person's own constituency as to how they take in and want to explore this field. I don't feel
Mhm.
like my idea and what I've been conditioned and brought up with is to do things quickly, is to try and
Mhm.
be as efficient as possible. And I think that part of that is something I'm unlearning now, is to allow things to go at their own natural pace. But yeah, I think that this is something that cannot be forced.
It's interesting because it's very challenging for me as well. Yeah, it's exactly the same. And I still, yeah, almost daily I struggle with that, to be more efficient, to be more fast. How can I do this in a better way? Yeah, it can be exhausting. But over time, I think I also learned, like, yeah, just certain things need time, need their
Yeah.
time. There's no shortcut. Yeah,
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
but it's hard to accept it. It's hard. Yeah, you can say it, and But still, if you're not programmed like that, you're just gonna try to find your ways to get through that. And it's also very rewarded in our society to find shortcuts and hacks and all kinds of things to do, to get ahead of someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, and that's still something that I'm seeking to cultivate balance within myself. But I feel like it's a journey. It's something that, especially if it's something very hardwired into ourselves, into our nervous system, if we hold our intention to experience a different way of being, then we will get there. We will slowly and gradually acclimatize to a different way of operating. As long as we continue to hold it in our attention and in our intention, and be gentle with ourselves on the way there. And again, that's something that I'm consistently seeking to embody more and more.
Yeah, nice. So with all the things that you're involved in and all the projects that you do, what is your vision for the coming 5 years, 10 years? Is there some goal that you have, something you want to achieve? I know it's then based on that performance, or maybe you don't have goals, or maybe you just go with the flow.
I'm okay with this kind of, because I feel like if we don't have a perspective of where we want to go, I just find it just doesn't support my personality type. And so I definitely feel like at the moment I've really cultivated a strong community from the work that I'm doing here locally. But my desire is to travel and to be able to do that, to be invited to different places, to hold workshops, retreats, transformational experiences, to develop my online community. I have an online program that I'm launching in January, which is based on meditation and subconscious mind reprogramming. And so that's the second online program offering that I'm doing. And so I want to move more and more into generating online communities so that people from all over the world can connect. Because I also feel it's possible for people that are new to this way of relating to themselves, they can feel isolated because maybe in the area that they live in, there aren't so many people there. So I feel really motivated to create more online spaces to cultivate the same kind of ethos and energy that I'm able to cultivate in person. And for me, I desire to be a father, I desire to create a family, and I know that is going to be a huge up leveling of my own compassion and patience, and ability to experience and express love. So I feel like that element, and balancing that element of really having this passion and desire to have this outward focus and impact, while also bringing my family into that process and traveling with a family and showing them the world, and creating this harmonious environment for them and for me and my wife is a big part of that.
Having kids, that's another chapter in life. It's interesting because I can imagine that you're already thinking about it. Okay, how I'm gonna raise these kids? What will be for them an ideal environment to grow up in? How will I prepare them for this world? With all the knowledge that you have right now and that you have learned over the years, maybe it would be interesting to share very briefly a kind of a philosophy that you have about raising kids in this world today.
Well, this one comes from my wife, but I like the perspective, and it's that they're God's children, they're not ours. And so to raise them in a way that doesn't have this strong control and attachment to the way that they choose to live their lives, and the way that they choose to create a space to enable them to follow their own path. It's different to the way that I was raised, so that's one that I feel quite inspired to cultivate. And one of the reasons that we decided to live in Bali is because of how beneficial we feel that it is to raise a family. It's very supportive here. We're surrounded by nature. It feels safe, and we're surrounded by a community of also people that are raising families as well. So that also feels beautiful, is to have this support network and also have other individuals that are able to then provide a parental role for our children, so they can have many different healthy influences from men and women that surround us, and also will express love and care for them.
How well exactly are you integrated in local culture in Bali? If you
Well,
look at the different things that you do, like all the projects that you do, maybe friends, community.
So we live in an area that is not very not very full of tourists or expats. It's outside of Bali, so there's a very large Balinese community that live around us, and we've been developing friendships and relationships with them. We only speak very little Bahasa, which is Indonesian, but we have focused on generating relationships with the local community through the events and things that we've been creating. And for example, when we got married, had one Balinese ceremony, and we had all of our local friends holding that ceremony for us with the local priest and with the local. It's called the bonja here, but it's like the local officials, and they were there to support us and to bless us. And so we're doing things like this where we enable ourselves to have a deeper connection and express our appreciation for the land that we live on and the locals that are guardians of this land. And then there's also a big community of expats that live in Bali or that are traveling through Bali or living here for a period of time. And we've been cultivating strong relationships with a lot of them in the years that we've been here.
Yeah. And all the healing work and all these modalities that you teach and that you know about, how does that align with the local culture? Because I know Bali is very spiritual, like the culture is very spiritual as well. They have their own healing modalities. Do you inspire each other there? Do you collaborate there? How does that work for you?
Yeah, so it's really interesting, actually. I promoted an event 2 weeks ago that was called Non-Dual. And it was a music and dance event. And I was contacted by a Balinese priest who asked to have a phone call with me because he was intrigued by the concept, because non-duality is central to the Balinese philosophy. And so he was asking me about about the way that I was conducting this event, what I was cultivating, what I was promoting, and how we were structuring the experiences. And what was fascinating is that he said a lot of these different elements are very similar to the traditional ways that the Balinese are conducting their celebrations and ceremonies, through music and through dance, through heart-centered meditation, and then also this idea of non-duality. So it was fascinating to see how even passively we're connected to this field of intelligence and being able to express that.
Yeah. That's amazing to hear. It's an example of I think in religion there is so many things that on the outside look very different, but if you go deeper into them, they are very similar. Certain kind of practices, certain kind of ideas, beliefs. It's just a matter of perception, seeing different things in a different way. And the separation that we see in our society based on religion, while actually it's all kind of the same thing for me. And yeah, if you study that, it's confirmation after confirmation, basically, that happens. So yeah, let's not go too deep into that right now. We don't have the time for this, but that's really interesting. Like if we talk about these kind of things, it always comes up that, and it's always a confirmation that I get that yeah, just we're all one, we're all the same. It's just perception.
Yes, brother, absolutely. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, exactly. So before we close this podcast session, maybe one thing I mostly ask is there a certain topic or a certain core message that you want to share with the audience, something we haven't really talked about that is important for you?
Well, I think it just touches into what you were just saying, and that really feels most present in my heart at the moment, which is this idea of unity. And it's really that when we are connecting with every person in our life, we can use that person as a reflection for our own inner ideas or perspectives or judgments or belief systems that we've created, and use that as information as to where we can grow and where we can evolve and where we can shift and how we can develop more passion, compassion, and acceptance for others. I feel that's the most inspiring thing and tool that we have that maybe not so many people are engaging with on a day-to-day basis, but provides the greatest opportunity for transformation.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and make space for it. I think that's like the key word of this of this session.
Yeah,
It's like creating
yeah,
space and yeah, and allow things to come and accept and let go and yeah, all these kind of things.
yeah. It's in the space when the realizations are able to happen. Because if we're constantly running from thing to thing, then
Exactly.
it doesn't land.
No, it doesn't until we smash our head against the wall and certain events happen, and that's what we see. That's what we all experience. If like really dramatic things are happening in our life, then all of a sudden we are stopped, and then we are forced to take a step back because we're injured or something other. Just give an example.
Yeah,
That shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. We should give ourselves, allow ourselves to give space because we want it, because we need it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. If we don't listen, we'll get a slap from the universe that will make us listen.
Totally unavoidable. It's totally. Yeah. So yeah, if people want to know more about you, what you do, where you work, where can people find you?
So my puppy is saying hello, and at Instagram, my handle is at dr.manish .plaha, and my website is drmanishplaha.com. So those are the two best ways to get in touch and to find out about more about what I'm doing.
Okay. Yeah, amazing. And I would everybody recommend to have a look at your content. I think on Instagram you're very present. There's a lot of amazing videos that are shared, very inspiring messages, and yeah, I would just recommend everyone to have a look and see what it does. What it does. So thank you very much, Manish, for being here. It was a really inspiring conversation. There are really amazing things that you do. Yeah. So yeah, I wish that yeah, more of people would experience this and get in touch with the kind of work that you do, and also others, of course. And if people have the chance to go to Bali, we would recommend them to do it, to be fully immersed in everything that's happening there around healing. And yeah, thank you.
It's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for holding such a beautiful space, Hank. I really appreciate what you do.
You're welcome. Thank you.